Imagine being trapped in the dark Pacific Ocean during a terrible storm, where the raging sea has swallowed your entire family and you are clinging to a rickety wooden lifeboat next to a wild 850-pound Bengal tiger. You are hungry, far from civilization, and every wave threatens to sink your makeshift shelter. This is not just a battle against nature. It is a brutal test of faith, mental health, and survival of the fittest. Our story begins in Pondicherry, India, in a world that feels like a magical fairy tale. A middle-aged man named Pai Patel sits in his Canadian home, telling the story of his extraordinary life to a struggling writer looking for inspiration. Pai explains that he grew up in a paradise of strange creatures. In the botanical gardens and zoo run by his father, Pai had a simple belief that all living things have souls, just like humans. This illusion was shattered when a ferocious Bengal tiger named Richard Parker was brought to the zoo. Out of curiosity, 12-year-old Pai entered the tiger's cage and tried to give the huge predator a piece of raw meat with his bare hands. As the tiger approached, his father grabbed him and pulled him back in fear. Determined to teach the boys a lesson they would never forget, Pai's father ordered the zookeeper to tie a live goat to the iron chain of the tiger's cage. Despite his wife's pleas to protect the children's innocence, the father forced Pai and his brother Robbie to watch. In a flash of terrifying speed and strength, Richard Parker leapt, dragging the goat through the chain into the darkness. Pai's father sternly warns him that when he looks into the eyes of an animal, he does not see a friend. He sees only a reflection of his own human emotions. The brutal reality of nature leaves a permanent scar on young Pai, shattering his romantic view of the world. Years passed, and 16-year-old Pai grew into a young man. He found his first love in Anandi, a charming dancer he met while playing drums for his dance troupe. Their tender love story was filled with silent glances and moments spent at the zoo. But political unrest in India soon threatened their family's livelihood. Faced with financial uncertainty, Pai's father made a life-changing decision. They would sell the zoo's animals overseas and take the entire family to the other side of the world, to Canada, to start a new life. Heartbroken, Pai, leaving everything he knew behind, silently and tearfully bid Anandi. In 1977, the Patel family boarded a large Japanese cargo ship called the Simsim, which was carrying both human passengers and crates of caged zoo animals bound for North America. Life on the ship was full of excitement from the start. In the mess hall, when Pai's mother asked for vegetarian food, she was insulted by a rude French cook, which led to a heated argument with Pai's father. The ship's crew later separated them. The creatures on board were drugged so that they could cross the ocean calmly, and the ship crashed into the depths of the Pacific Ocean, directly over the Mariana Trench, the deepest, most inhospitable trench on Earth. 4 days after leaving Manila, late at night, a terrible storm struck. As his family slept peacefully in a cabin below deck, Pai was awakened by a deep, terrifying roar echoing off the iron walls. Thrilled by the thrill of nature, Pai left his brother in bed and went up to the main deck to watch the storm. The rain splashed on his face as he danced on the slippery floor, and he was fascinated by the huge waves and the roaring wind. Suddenly, the ship gave a terrible, uncomfortable jolt. Emergency lights lit up the cluttered deck, and the siren of the distress signal echoed through the air. Pai shuddered in horror as a huge, devastating wave crashed over the bow of the ship, instantly sweeping the sailors into the turbulent abyss. The cargo ship began to take on water quickly, and it tilted violently to one side. Panic gripped Pai, and he rushed down the stairs to save his family. But as he reached the lower floors, he was confronted by a wall of seawater rushing into the corridors. The terrified Pai watched in disbelief as wild animals, having escaped from their flooded cages, swam through the flooded corridors. Back on the main deck, Pai screamed desperately for his mother, father, and brother, but his voice was drowned out by the roar of the sea and the metallic groans of the dying ship. The terrified sailors grabbed Pai, tied a life vest to him, and forcibly threw him into a lowering lifeboat. As the lifeboat dangled in midair, a frightened zebra leapt from the deck of the ship, crashed into the air, and smashed into the boat, ripping the boat's ropes. The lifeboat crashed into the turbulent sea below, nearly capsizing like a toy under the impact of the huge waves. Grabbing the tripod, Pai turned in utter horror and saw an impossible sight. The huge cargo ship Simsim had tilted steeply, its bright deck lights sinking into the depths of the Mariana Trench, dragging his entire family to that black abyss forever. Alone in a raging storm, Pai, weeping for his lost family, sees a figure floundering in the water. Desperate to save his fellow passenger, he throws a lifebuoy and pulls the drowning body into the boat. But when the figure rises over the edge into the dim light, Pi is stunned by sheer terror. This is no human sailor. This is Richard Parker, a ferocious, adult Bengal tiger who is climbing straight into the lifeboat. When the fierce storm subsides, Pi finds himself stranded in a 26-foot lifeboat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The boat's occupants create a tense, unsettling, zoo-like situation. Pi, a critically injured zebra, a grieving female orangutan named Orange Juice, a ferocious leopard hyena, and Richard Parker, who hides under the lifeboat's protective canvas tarpaulin. This fragile peace treaty quickly evaporates. Driven by a voracious appetite, the hyena savagely attacks the helpless zebra and soon moves on to the Orange Juice. Despite the orangutan's brave resistance, the hyena kills him. Angered and terrified, Pi prepares to attack the hyena himself, but Richard Parker suddenly emerges from under the tarpaulin, killing the hyena instantly and establishing his absolute dominance over the boat. Now alone with an 850-pound apex predator, Pi constructs a makeshift raft from a raft, life jacket, and rope and ties it to the back of the lifeboat. Living in this floating extension keeps him out of Richard Parker's reach, but it does not provide long-term safety. Realizing that he must coexist with the tiger in order to survive, Pi uses the boat's emergency survival equipment, a flute and pieces of fish, to try to subdue Richard Parker, mark the boundaries of the territory, and establish himself as a provider of food and clean water. Months at sea, Pi transforms from a strict vegetarian to a clever hunter, hunting fish for himself and the tiger. Their bond grows from one of mere fear to one of mutual dependence. Caring for Richard Parker keeps Pi's mind occupied and prevents him from succumbing to depression or loneliness. They endure extreme heat, long periods of starvation, and a terrible storm, which destroys Pi's raft and forces him to return to the lifeboat alongside the weakened tiger. Almost completely exhausted, blind from malnutrition, and dehydrated, the pair end up on a mysterious floating island made entirely of carnivorous algae and inhabited by thousands of meerkats. The island provides fresh water and food during the day, but Pi discovers a human tooth hidden inside a fruit tree and realizes that at night, acidic algae eat away at its surface. Realizing the trap, Pi gathers the necessary supplies, convinces Richard Parker to return to the boat, and resumes their journey by sea. Eventually, the lifeboat washes up on the coast of Mexico. Weak and emaciated, Pi collapses on the sand. Richard Parker weakly climbs out of the boat, walks to the edge of a nearby forest, and stops. Pi hopes the tiger will turn around and give him one last look or some sign of farewell, but Richard Parker simply stares into the dense undergrowth and disappears into the forest without looking back, leaving Pi to cry at the abrupt end to their shared ordeal. Local villagers rescue Pi and take him to the hospital. Two officials from the Japanese Ministry of Transport come to interview him about the Simsim shipwreck. When they dismiss his incredible story of tigers, hyenas, zebras, and a carnivorous island as unrealistic, Pi presents them with a second, darker alternative.